When you're growing up and you're a child star, you're either treated badly, like Robert Blake said he used to be, or you're embraced and are cast in film after film after film, like Robert Winckler was. He was a big Republic child star, and his son is following in his footsteps in the business, not as an actor, but as a producer. We have William Winckler here with us right here. So, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. My God, all these classic people that Dad worked with Roy and with Gene and with Wyatt's grandfather in Sullivan's Travels.
Oh, tell us about that. Tell us about Sullivan's Travels.
That's considered one of the top 100 movies of all time by AFI. Sullivan's Travels with Joel McCrea. It was a Preston Sturges film. And Dad had an incredibly memorable scene with Joel McCrea. And many of you probably have seen it, and it's a classic. But Dad got into show business around 1935. And Charlie Chaplin's wife, Mildred Harris Chaplin, wrote a letter of introduction to Hal Roach Studios, and that's how my dad got into the business.
Did your dad ever do a Hal Roach Our Gang?
Oh, he did about a dozen of them. That was the era with Spanky and Alfalfa and Darla Hood. And I remember my dad telling me that it was a nightclub scene, and instead of having the kids drink cocktails and alcoholic beverages, they would have ice cream. But because of the hot lights at the time, they couldn't use ice cream, so they used cold mashed potatoes with chocolate on it. And he said it required a lot of acting skill to be able to sit there and eat, these potatoes are delicious, you know?
Good. Well, it was the Depression era when your dad became a child star.
That's right. In the 1930s, you could go to a movie house, and you could see a cartoon, and Bobby Winckler was doing the voice in this Merry Melodies Looney Tunes cartoon. And then they'd have like a specialty, Pete Smith specialty, and Dad would be in that. And then there'd be a serial like Daredevils of the Red Circle or some Republic thing, and Dad was the kid in that. And then he'd be in the Western, and then he'd be in the A Picture. And then when you went home and turned on the radio, he'd be on Edward G. Robinson show on radio, or he'd be on, he'd had multiple jobs in one day, but He worked in over 85 films and hundreds of radio shows with nearly all the stars of the golden age of Hollywood. With the Westerns, it was, Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, Wild Bill Elliott, Bob Steele, Johnny McBrown, Tim McCoy, Bob Livingston, Bob Baker, George Houston. I could go on and on and on.
That's not a nice way to act, son. Why don't you like cowpokes?
His main love was being up at Iverson's Ranch with Wild Bill Elliott and Johnny Mac Brown and Tim McCoy and all those guys.
So what did he tell you about working with those guys?
Oh, what nice people. Oh, how nice. They treated him like he was their son. Some of those horses, Dad rode on some famous horses. You talk about the Lone Ranger with Don. It was Silver Chief was a horse that Dad rode in one of the movies, which was the Lone Ranger's horse in the serials, and was also Charles Starrett's the Durango Kid's horse. So Dad even worked with famous horses.
How long did it go for him as a child star?
Between the ages of like 6 to 20, and then he caught the tail end of World War II, and then got involved with that, and then his parents wanted him to go to college, and he could pursue the acting afterwards. And he became interested in law, and he became a successful entertainment attorney with his sole proprietor, with representing people he worked with as a kid. Now, like George Montgomery, Dad did a movie with George Montgomery called Last of the Duanes.
Zane Grey.
And then later in life, he represented George Montgomery as an attorney. We used to go to his house for Thanksgiving. George Montgomery was this big giant, as a kid, I remember shaking his hand. It was like shaking a bear claw, It just was.
Bill, thank you for being here today.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. It was fantastic.
Great story. Well said.